Good evening everyone, hope everyone's keeping well. It's been a few of these videos now. I think they've gone down absolutely fantastically. I think everybody's chomping at the bit to get out on the bank, and all the good stuff going on at the moment with Simon Jones doing the NHS virtual White Acres. I must say I'm having a terrible week. Thank God it's only virtual, but absolutely fantastic stuff being done. In all these types of videos, really, to mainly to raise money, to thank, and to really keep people's interest during these difficult times. And I spoke to Trevor, and I thought it'd be quite a nice opportunity, really. To there's two things I wanted to talk about. Firstly, was Alders Farm itself. Hopefully, this will be quite an interesting video for those that that don't know sort of my history and where I grew up. Being Alders Farm, so probably not many of you know that, so I'll go into a little bit of detail about when and how I fished Alders Farm, how I was introduced to Trevor and Gary, of course, in when Got Baits evolved, but then also lead me on to the second part of the video, which is going to be more talking about the times that we're in at the moment are really difficult, and it's certainly allowed me to reflect on kind of obviously my fishing, but how I've got to where I am now in my fishing, carrying on fishing from a very young age, and also obviously where it all started, which brings me on nicely now to Alders Farm. So back in 2006, I took the plunge from club fishing to go into, I suppose, open matches, really. And that's where I met Trevor and Gary. I'll never forget the first match. I turned up on the Pump Lake, and done the draw, fished the match, my first open match I've fished. I'd done absolutely abysmal. At this point, all I'd ever done was club fish. And I always remember the only source of information I could get, so bear in mind I was only 16, the only information I could get was on a forum. This is me opening up now, being totally honest. I think more of us should do this. I'm not ashamed. Maggot Drowners. Now this is a forum, back in its day, it was absolutely, I think it's still running now, but absolutely fantastic source of information for venues, tactics. I hope Steve Ringer watches this, actually, because I plagued him with information, or plagued him to ask him for information and advice, really, on all sorts of questions. And I actually went on there today to try and find some of the questions, but unfortunately the archive had been deleted, because I thought it would be quite good to see some of the questions that I asked Steve back in those days. And we're talking, well, it was 2006, so a long time ago. It was actually back in 2006 that I joined Fox Match Got Baits, again, as I mentioned before, where I met Trevor and Gary, and then that's when I started fishing Alders, and that's really where I was introduced to commercial carp fishing for the first time. And that's pretty much where I learned everything to catch big weights, feeding a lot of bait. For those that don't know Alders, back in 2006, 2005 days, before a lot of fish were removed, and I must say now the fishing is absolutely, it's probably better than it ever was, to be fair. But back then there was a lot more fish in there, and you had to feed a lot of bait, and all this was new to me. And this is where I sort of evolved and fished with Trevor and Gary. Lee Ripper's another one. At Oakfield, I used to fish Oakfield regularly in the winter, and this is where they really took me under their wing and allowed me to, I suppose, develop as a young angler. And I guess that's the purpose of this video, is to really try and reflect on where you've come as an angler. I think we're all guilty that we forget that sometimes. And as Alders and Oakfield evolved, I joined the Fox Match Got Baits team. This was a relatively new team, really, in that sort of teams of 3, teams of 4. Olders Winter League. So around sort of 17, 18 years old at this point. And it was really at that point that I got the bug for fishing. Big style in terms of match fishing. I probably, in hindsight, probably should have moved away from club fishing. And I always remember Steve Ringer saying to me when I was around 15, 16, he advised at that point that I probably should take the plunge and go into open match fishing. In hindsight, he was right. I should have done that a lot younger age. But other reasons, we've all been there, haven't we? We've all done club fishing and things like that, and you're in your comfort zone. Main reason for going fishing was to spend time with my dad. For those that know me well will know how important that was to me. So, you know, I don't regret that. I think I'll probably be a little bit further on in my fishing than I am now. But I think those days, you know, that they're just second to none, and something that will stay with me forever. But in terms of Alders, and this is another interesting point for people that have only started fishing Alders recently, you'll notice the small satellite lakes around those lakes, around the Silver